So today I'm going to talk to you about hooliganism. And now you're going to think, what is hooliganism? Just a troublemaker? Like, what am I talking about here? In my case, hooliganism is something that's very popular in Europe and South America, especially in soccer. But before I talk about that, I'm going to give you a little background about violence. So, we see violence everywhere, and even though it might be really hard to realize, we have to realize that it's not only in the media or television, it's actually all around us, like war, riots, and all that kind of stuff. But those are just a few examples. So, hooliganism is also an example of violence. But what exactly is hooliganism? So, soccer hooliganism is basically, if you imagine just gangs of people grouping together, and it's almost like pre-planned fights that happen at soccer games. And it's, as many of you know, soccer is one of the biggest sports in the world, in most of the countries. So, hooliganism is a major part of the crime in many of those countries. So, when I first came to the States, in 2008, I had this idea that hooliganism was almost ever present. It was everywhere. So, I went to my first football game here, and what I saw was something completely different. I was actually shocked to see the atmosphere in the stadiums that was going on. People were friendly, everyone was smiling, and everyone still had that passion. The hooligans back in Europe also had that passion, and yeah, while they were fighting for their teams, they, in their minds, they were just those big guys who were doing the right thing, you know, fighting for their pride. But the American scene made me realize how bad of an influence hooliganism can have on the society as a whole. When I was in Poland, about 8 or 9 years old, one of my best friends went up to me after class and offered to take me to a soccer game in our hometown. He had an extra ticket, so it was just him, his dad, and me going to the game. We went, and about 30 minutes into the game, I heard a man scream behind me, "Hey, you're in my seat!" And within 30 seconds of that small conflict, everyone in the stadium was just fighting. I mean, everyone in every single section, it was getting ridiculous. So my friend's dad took us out of the stadium, and then I saw something I'll never forget. Behind the smoke, rising from the flares, I saw around 15, if not 20 police cars, and out of those cars there were cops coming with riot shields at the crowd, trying to kind of calm down the turmoil that was happening. And I turned my head, and right in front of me there was a man getting knocked down with a single punch. Then, this is probably something the most traumatizing to an 8-year-old or 9-year-old like me. I saw a guy running across the street, his head shaved, because most of the hooligans are skinheads. He must have been some terrible fight. There was a piece of loose scalp kind of hanging off the back of his head, and it had a terrible influence on me as a little child. It really was something extraordinary. Another story with which most of you are probably more familiar is the story of a Brazilian referee who was also a victim of hooliganism. He was around 20 years old at the time. He made a bad call in an amateur Brazilian league game, and he got in a fight with the player. The player attacked him because he red carded him, which means that the player was ejected from the game. Obviously, the player did not think the call was fair. There was a fight going on. In his own defense, the referee had to stop the player because it was getting rowdy. And the next day, the body of this referee was found quartered on the pitch with his head impaled at midfield. Of course, I mean, this is just something that doesn't usually happen with hooliganism, but this is a rare occurrence. But usually injury or even death can be involved, and this just shows how much of a negative influence hooliganism can be. However, physical violence isn't the only aspect of hooliganism. racism is also a big part, especially in England and Italy. What happens is just they have racist chants for particular players. For example, in Italy, a player named Kevin Boateng, who was a Ghanaian player, was insulted by the crowd during one of the games with a racist chant. After that, he left the pitch and refused to play. His teammate Mario Balotelli, who is also a dark-skinned Italian player, solidarized with him, saying that if he is a victim of racial discrimination like that during the game, he will also leave the pitch, just like his teammate did. And I mean, if you think about it, who would want to sit next to a fan who's just violent and can blow up on you anytime? No one who goes to those games wants to be stuck between those people. So why don't we take example from Pope Francis here and just all be good soccer fans cheering in a healthy spirit? I feel that would really